Hi, it's Jules Lowell, and I have not recorded or posted a video in a really long time for my YouTube channel. And since the last time I've recorded, I have had a lot of new subscribers to my channel who have come here because of my TikTok channel and the content that I post on that channel. So I want to bring you guys in and kind of mesh the two worlds together. On my channel, I talk about whatever I want, whatever I'm feeling at the moment, fashion, the entertainment industry, acting, anything I want. But I want to take this time to talk about my experience with someone who's narcissistic, someone who was an abuser, and what led to me finally leaving. My parents were married to each other, and they wound up getting divorced when I was a teenager, and they argued all the time. My parents worked all the time, so it's not that it was necessarily a bad house to grow up in. I mean, they worked really hard to take care of me and my siblings. I just wanted a better life. I wanted the ideal household, husband. I wanted children because I thought once I got married, everything would be perfect and I would have kids and we would live happily ever after. So I prayed that the next guy that I dated would be the guy that I married. I began working at a jewelry store. I was 19 or 20 years old. I had just turned 20, I believe. And I got a job at a jewelry store with another guy that worked there, and we got to know each other and we started dating, and everything was fine at first. He called when he said he was going to call, texted back. We would go out on dates. I got to meet his whole family and all of his friends, so there's really nothing to look out for. And then just minor red flags would start to pop up. One of the very first red flags is when I saved a little bit of money and got him a pair of sneakers. And when I gave him those sneakers, he asked me for the receipt so that he can return them for the money. And I know that people do this all the time, but for some reason that just didn't feel right to me. Another red flag was when he would ask me money for lunch to be able to get something to eat. Again, couples ask each other for money all the time, but again, it just didn't sit well with me. I began to really notice that it was a problem when he would call, and if I didn't answer his call, I got questioned about where I was, and the fact that it took however many minutes to return his call or to return his text. This was my very first serious relationship, and nobody had really modeled what it would look like to actually have a healthy relationship. So I just thought that, these things were no big deal. During the course of our relationship, I think we were maybe several months in, and he decided that he was going to move to Atlanta to help his sister, and we agreed that we were going to continue to be together and just have a relationship long distance. And it was kind of weird because there was no plan for me to go eventually live with him. But after talking about it, I kind of pulled back a little bit, and he decided that I would go up there with him. The biggest red flag for me, looking back, and I should have run seeing it, was when I had everything packed up, and once we left the town I was in, he looked at me, and I vaguely remember he said something to the effect of, "I got you away from your family," or something like that. And I was really worried at that moment, because that's not necessarily something that you would say to someone. About a month after we moved, it was New Year's, and he proposed to me on, I think it was New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, and I was finally happy. I thought I was getting everything that I wanted. I was engaged, and I couldn't wait to plan a wedding, which he quickly kind of kept pushing off. And when I was honest with him that I kind of felt like he proposed to me just to kind of shut me up, He blew up and got upset. How dare I question it, and things like that. And I just had a genuine question, because it really felt like he only asked me to marry him because, you know, he was trying to shut me up because I had wanted to be married since we were living together anyway. I became pregnant shortly after that. I think it was February I became pregnant. Had a miscarriage. One thing I would say is I quickly learned that his family would always come first over me. Even when we were married, they would come in and out and live with us. He never consulted with me. We never agreed on a time frame or what their plan would be. They would just live with us for as long as they wanted. They were extremely intrusive and butt in a lot, and always had to give an opinion on everything and didn't give a damn how I felt. He never set boundaries or did anything to take up for me. I became pregnant again, and I remember it's one thing for his family not to take up for me, whatever. But even his coworkers, I wore some low cut pants and didn't realize that the top of my butt was showing. And the lady was like, "Oh, so you like to have your butt out?" And she goes behind my back to him and tells him, and then he gets on to me and asks me, why do I like to show my butt to people? And that wasn't even what I was trying to do. And a normal person would have been like, "Hey, just, you know, pull up your pants a little bit." But even they knew that they didn't have to respect me. It was just very lonely. A lot of illegal activity was going on. There was something he got arrested for. He said it was because we got furniture from like a rent to own type store and we didn't pay the bill. But that was a weird reason to go to jail, to get locked up, and I didn't question it. I bailed him out. I went to a bail bonds place, which was really creepy for me because being a quiet girl, that's not really something that I grew up having to deal with. So that was a part of something that I got used to. His friends came to live with us at one point until they got their own place. And they even said stuff that was just intrusive and offensive. And again, he didn't stick up for me. And there was one time I genuinely made a joke about something, and they went behind my back and told him, and he grilled me and questioned me about why I would say certain things. And it wasn't anything that I thought was insulting. I forgot how we did it, but somehow we wound up moving to another apartment because we couldn't pay for the one that we had. So we moved to another apartment complex, and I was still pregnant with our first child, and one of his family members came to live with us. I had gotten a new job at a maternity store, and from there we got another apartment. This is all a blur to me, so I'm trying to carefully piece everything together. So from there, we got another apartment in a much nicer area. At that point, I think either months later or not too much later, I gave birth to our son, and he got arrested and locked up. The reason still is not clear to me to this day. And I had, our son was under a month old, and I wasn't working because we agreed that I would stay home with our child. And everybody kept saying, "Why don't you go back to work?" But the funny thing is, there was nobody to watch our child. So I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do, and I couldn't afford to have anybody watch our child. So I'm not sure how we made it, but the rent kept getting paid. And when he was in jail and he would call again, getting grilled, "Why didn't you answer the phone? What were you doing? What did you do today? That doesn't sound like it makes sense." And I took our baby to the jail to visit him, and I got a lot of crap for that because there were people in line behind me like, "I would never take a baby here," which nobody asked them. And I took our son, and I remember our son was crying, and he was like, "He's doing this because he's bad." And how can a 1-month-old baby be bad? Once he got out, all the promises he made that we were going to do better and we were going to start fresh. We got married in the courthouse. And I remember his mom saying, if you get married in a courthouse, you're going to get divorced in a courthouse. And that's not necessarily true. Lots of people have courthouse weddings all the time and they're just fine. But for some reason that stuck with me, and it made sense to me in a way that I didn't want to believe that it would, probably because of all the stuff that was already going on. And I had gained some baby weight, and he would tell me that I was fat, and then also tell me that I was perfect and that he didn't want to change me. And it would go kind of back and forth between the two. And even though we both agreed that I would stay home and take care of our son, he complained that I didn't contribute to the family, and went back and forth between that. And that's what caused me to get a job at the mall in the area that we lived in. And once we realized that we couldn't afford a babysitter, I was back at home, and he could never be satisfied. There was one day, I forgot what we were arguing about. Anytime he was mad at me about something or I misbehaved, he always took out this yellow folder, I guess to make it seem official, and would say, I want a divorce, and we need to sit and go over what we're going to do for this divorce. And I don't remember what happened, but he lunged towards me and choked me. And he would say, well, I choked you because you slammed the door and you made something fall on our son. I didn't slam the door, and nothing fell on our son. But I feel like he needed to make up a reason for it to be my fault. And after that happened, he decided that he wanted to send me away and that we needed time apart. And I was begging him because, I didn't know better at the time. I was codependent. I didn't want to go back home. I wanted to work it out. And he was so angry that he actually broke down in tears and told me that he was jealous of me because I could easily get a job because I hadn't ruined my past, that people, liked me for who I was, and that I didn't have to, try to be funny. I didn't have to try hard for people to like me. And I remember going to comfort him, and he was like, no, don't comfort me. So from there, me and my baby, my little son, we went back to live with my dad, and he went and did whatever he wanted. And I would lie and tell people, we just needed time apart because, he's managing his brother's music career and he didn't, want me to get in the way. But everybody knew. And I begged him to let me come back, which he did not want me to come back at all. He would always say, well, I only care about taking care of our son. I don't care about you. I went back, and he didn't talk to me all the way on the drive back. And he made me feel like crap, made me feel horrible. And there's nothing worse than driving from Arkansas to Georgia and having someone treat you like you're nothing. And I tried to pretend like, I didn't care, but it was killing me. It was killing me. He had purchased a townhome, and I never knew anything about it. And he claims to this day that I walked in and was like, why would you get this? But I don't remember that at all. Narcissists have a funny way of making stuff up so they can look good and justify when they treat you poorly. So I just went with it. I was happy. It was really nice. And I became pregnant with our second child, our daughter, to which he told me after I found out, I still want to leave you. I still don't want to get back together with you, which was, again, a knife to my heart, because that's really not something you say to someone who's pregnant, to someone who really, to someone who really cares and wants to work out their marriage. I didn't know better back then. I don't know how I found the strength, but I found a job, and I got my own apartment, and I had a son, and I was pregnant. He wasn't working at the time, so he would watch our son, and him and his brothers also at that time had gotten their own little house that they were renting. And I worked really hard, and I didn't have a car, so I had to get rides to work because the car I had, the transmission wasn't working, and I couldn't afford to fix it, and he couldn't afford to fix it. So I got a lot of rides to work until he eventually got a car, or I got a car. I don't remember. It's been so long ago. And I'm not sure why, but his brothers were about to lose the place they were living in. It was an apartment, and he came and slowly started to integrate his way into the apartment that I had, and until he was eventually just living there. And I couldn't really afford to pay for that apartment anymore. And we decided to move into this 2-level house that he got with his brothers. He was already living there. And I eventually moved in. And again, family living there. I'm living there. It was just a lot. And it wasn't in good shape. It was just gross everywhere. There was mold everywhere. It was just dusty and disgusting. His family would come to visit whenever they wanted, and they would say whatever they wanted to me, and he would disappear, not tell me where he was, and talk down to me. And his 2 nephews came to stay with us. Nobody talked to me about it, and I was supposed to babysit them. Okay. And I just remember developing an eating disorder, which I had already struggled with one that just made it worse. My hair was falling out. I wasn't sleeping. And there was one day he said again that he wanted a divorce, and he refused to talk to me anymore. I was involved in a church at the time, and they really took me in. I made a lot of friends who were kind of guardian angels and watched over me. I would tell them what was going on, and they were just disgusted. But they also knew that you can't force a victim of abuse to leave. They have to want to do that on their own. I remember one day I asked him, I said, you know what, I want a divorce too. And it was something that I had to bring myself to finally realize that that's what I needed to do. When I would sneak on the internet and research what I was going through. Abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse. And I told him, you know what, I don't want to be married anymore. I want to leave. And the look on his face was like, oh, really? Like, he was shocked. And I remember being like, are you serious? Like, do you not understand what's going on here? Like, you're cheating on me. You're mistreating me. And I'm so, what? And I think in that situation, looking back, narcissists always have to have the power in the situation. So the fact that in that moment I took his power away, that was the shock. It wasn't the fact that I wanted the marriage to end. It was the fact that he wasn't the one to do it, to want to do it. Legitimately actually go through with it. On another day, I asked him, can I have my car? By the way, it was my car, because I had gotten a new one, a used one. And I said, I just want my car back. If I'm going to leave, just give me my car back so I can drive to Arkansas. And he said, well, you're not taking my kids, which at that point, he didn't even know their shoe size. I was always the one to take them to their doctor visits, to the ER. You know, kids have normal infections that they go through as they grow up. And he was like, you're not taking my children. Again, that's something else that narcissists use against their significant other, is threatening to take the children from them or the child from them. I just remember saying, give me the car, give me the car, give me the car. And he turned around and choked me. I was holding our daughter, and our 3-year-old son was watching. My daughter was like barely a year old, or she was a year old. Again, I don't remember. It's been a long time. And he choked me up against the bathroom door I was standing up against, and I fell to the ground. And our son, who was 3 years old at the time, just kind of looked like. I remember calling the police immediately. I went upstairs and told his brother to hold our son and our daughter while I talked to the police. The police officer came. He looked at the bruises on my neck. Right here, there was a bruise. And he knew that that was not something that I could do by myself. While I was talking to the policeman, his brother came downstairs and was like, you know, that's probably something she could have done to herself. Narcissists are very charming. The police officer said, what do you want me to do? Do you want to press charges? And I was scared too, because I lived in the house with his other 2 brothers, and I didn't know what they were going to do to me if I had the brother arrested. So I just said no. And I took our children, and I locked the door and stayed in our bedroom the whole time, because he had left the moment after he had choked me. I remember trying to make a plan of what I was going to do, and with the help of the people at the church I was going to, I was able to find a domestic violence shelter, and a lady was nice enough to be willing to come to our home and assist me and my children in getting there. And the police officer, they come to make sure you get out safely. And I remember it was like early morning. I had packed up one suitcase, one duffel bag, and my daughter's car seat. And as soon as my friend got there, the police got there, we loaded up her trunk. And one of his brothers came outside like, what's going on? What's going on? And the officer was like, look, get in the car. Just don't worry about the car seat. You can drive a little bit further and we'll put the car seat in and just go. So we go. And we get to a certain point. We have to get to the police station. And from that point, the police drive you to the shelter. It's to keep people safe so you don't know the address or where it is. And I get there and he has called the police. He's put out a kidnapping report, a missing persons report, that I stole the children from him. And I called the police station worried that I was going to be in trouble for leaving. And they're like, no, we deal with this kind of thing all the time. You're fine. I met a lot of different women in that shelter. Some women who had traveled from other states to be in that shelter. And some women had been there for a really long time. And some women were, with the help of the state, getting their own apartment. And I had family in New Jersey that was kind enough to let me and my kids stay with them. And the women's shelter paid for all of our bus tickets to be able to get there. And with 2 kids, 2 bags, and a car seat, we rode the bus from Georgia to New Jersey. It was very interesting. I was very blessed to have the workers at the bus stations. They put a disabled sticker on my luggage, and that way it could just be sent straight from there or driven straight from there to the final destination in New Jersey, and I wouldn't have to lug it on and off each bus with a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. So I got to New Jersey, got everything needed for the divorce in January, flew to back to Georgia so the divorce could be finalized. And I stayed at a hotel, and he came to pick up the kids, and with this vengeful, demonic look in his eyes, he told me, how dare you, you took my kids from me. And I just stood there quietly, didn't have anything to say. He brought the kids back to me when he was supposed to, and we got a divorce. And it was the best day of my life. And that's why on my TikTok channel, I talk about dating, I talk about parenting, toxic relationships, and I also talk about domestic violence. And I encourage the women and men, whatever gender people identify with, to get out of situations like that, because you can't change somebody who doesn't want to be changed. The only thing you can change is the fact that you're in their life. And I don't want to be misleading. Once I got the divorce, life wasn't easy. It was a very bumpy road, and I didn't get the therapy and the treatment that I needed. So I went on for years to just continuously get into these relationships with different men, but the same situation, until I finally took care of myself and got myself in order and got to a place where I'm healthy. And now if I'm dating and I see any kind of red flags, I'm like, nope, not for me. Meet me over on TikTok if you're interested in more information. My TikTok name is also my name on here, just put together. So I will see you guys there. And to everybody that came here from TikTok, thank you so much for watching.